Hi, wanted to do a new video and didn't really have a topic that I felt like I could, concentrate on and really communicate something solid, a solid review or a solid set of philosophies. Um, so I decided to do another interlude, and oddly, those are kind of recently my most popular videos that I make. I'm not sure why. I mean, maybe there's some people who like to hear me ramble. Um, but today I'm just gonna ramble. So I'm gonna talk about what's been up with me and what are some things I've been enjoying as far as works of art, various media, and just life in general. I guess I'm not gonna get yeah. Well, enough said about some things. Um, Maybe shout out to a few friends that I haven't mentioned before, and some I have. Uh, so right now I'm watching the Criterion um, collection Blu-ray of All That Heaven Allows. This isn't a review, but I'm just going to mention a couple of things I've watched. I probably won't do a formal review of this. This is All That Heaven Allows. It's a nice thick set. Uh, it's got like uh, it's got like two DVDs, Blu-ray. You don't really need the DVDs because all the material's on the Blu-ray. But this is back when they were doing that silly thing. I guess to try to, I don't know, like, okay, watch this DVD, and then you'll watch this Blu-ray in the same set and get converted to Blu-ray. Um, I have a feel like that the Criterion did. Most of them have the same kind of packaging with a cardboard sleeve, but this is a really nice one. Um, I'm watching this because of a film that I got on Blu-ray on sale that I had ordered a while back. Um, Got it for $10, and it's one of my favorite films. It's in my top 100 probably of all time. I'm not sure where. Maybe not in my top 50, but um, called Ali Fear Eats the Soul. I don't know if you can read that or put it over in this light here up to the screen. Ali Fear Eats the Soul, also on Criterion Blu-ray. Bad lighting. And Werner Fassbinder directed, and it's my second favorite Fassbinder after Corel, which still not had an official Region A Blu-ray of any kind. It's now been out of print for quite a while, um, which makes me sad. Ali is I don't know, it's one of those movies that kind of touched me a lot, and it was like this awkward, impossible romance kind of deal, and it was very inspired by All That Heaven Allows by Douglas Sirk. Um, in All That Heaven Allows, Jane Wyman's an older lady who's been widowed, and she's got all these. She's got a very judgmental family, and she's got these ageist suitors trying to get her to remarry. But she falls for Rock Hudson, who's like the gardener, and also, he's like a horticulturist on his own. That's his thing. But then, of course, she's got the really mean, nosy neighbor played by Agnes Moorehead. Just think of how many movies and TV shows Agnes Moorehead appeared in where she played this person you just want to smack. I mean, she was like so mean. I mean, I don't know. I mean, she wasn't that likable in Bewitched, and she's in Dark Passage. She's just horrible. She's horrible in All That Heaven Allows. There's quite a few more. I can, there's a bunch. I think she's in Citizen Kane, but I can't remember if she's likable or not in that. She came out of the Mercury Theater that Orson Welles had prior to Citizen Kane, and a lot of those actors like John Houseman and Joseph Cotton, they popped up all through his films over the years afterwards. So, yeah, so their romance kind of fizzles, and then they try to pick it back up. This isn't All That Heaven Allows. So this one, Ali, is kind of like a modern take on it. I mean, modern when it came out. It's 1974, and it's like a lonely widow in Germany, and she's just this very sweet, well-mannered lady named Emmy, I believe, and she is hanging out one night at this bar. I guess she's just coming in out of the cold or whatever, and just randomly comes into this bar, and there's a bunch of regulars there. Of course, who are a lot younger than her, and some of them look kind of sleazy, probably because maybe they are kind of sleazy. And then some of them are just some immigrants who like go there after work to kind of just blow off steam, uh, or like Arabian immigrants. And so she happens to be approached by one of them, who she calls Ali. His real character's real name is extremely long, and the actor's real name is extremely long, but it's not. I can El Hadi bin Salem. I'm just going to call him Salem. So Salem was an important figure in Fassbinder's life. I mean, they both died pretty young and tragically. A lot of the stuff that happened between them and in their individual lives is kind of foreshadowed by this movie. Ali was an Arabian. Now, of course, in real life, I believe he might have had a wife and kids, but I might be thinking another one of Fassbinder's lovers. But yeah, he was gay, and Fassbinder was very passionate about him, and his emotions got bent out of shape. I don't know how Fassbinder had time for sex because he made so many. He was filming constantly. He made 40 feature films, a ton of plays, and two lengthy television miniseries. And he did this between 1969 and 1982. That's 13 years. Some people don't. A lot of people, maybe most people, don't achieve that much in 30 years, much less 13. And then he died. So, but he left us a really rich, legacy of films. I always respond to his movies. I don't know. He has a lot of outsider kind of characters, and just kind of domestic dramas that are usually kind of tragic. Some melodrama. He's probably my favorite of the new wave of German cinema that came out in the 70s. There's guys like him and Von Wanders, and of course Werner Herzog is my second favorite, and Volker Schlondorf and some of these other cats. But I Ali was really touching because the Ali character befriends this woman, and of course, on the surface they really seem to have nothing in common. She's probably 30 years older than him, and he's kind of a young, studly guy, but he's real quiet, and he's not quiet. He's very mellow, and uh, he's very well mannered. But of course, the problem is, uh, he's in an environment that's just teeming with racism. So he and her strike up a friendship, and even before it gets any more deep than that, her neighbors, these older women, German women, are in her business and saying nasty things about Ali. And then when they do spark a relationship, and a sexual relationship and a romantic relationship, uh, people are talking even more. And then they get married, and um, her family loses their mind. Her son kicks in the television set, and he's just so it is melodramatic. It's silly, but it's that's they're showing the other son storms out, and the daughter's like, "Oh my God, how could you?" And her boyfriend, played by Fassbinder, who looks at them with disgust, even though his character's like this really sleazy hanger on. Um, but basically, they're all like, mother, how could you? This is like beneath your station here. Don't in life, don't be doing this. And they really, to be honest, between the German uh, setting and their attitude, I mean, they really come off like a bunch of fucking Nazis. And the Nazis are very popular to talk about these days. And most people talk about, I guess they're talking about neo Nazis. But, the real Nazis, were the parents of the generation that Fassbinder belonged to. And I think that generation, which came of age in the late 60s, early 70s, there were two things that I'm familiar with. I'm sure there's plenty of other artistic things that I'm not as familiar with or don't know about. But one was krautrock, and these incredible bands came out of Germany with their own take on rock music. There's a lot of them, and I love them, and I'd like to do a feature sometime on krautrock, maybe some of my favorite ones. but I still haven't ironed out how to do this playing the music while I'm on camera yet. I'm technically inept. The other thing that came out of Germany was the new wave of German cinema, and I already mentioned that. So you basically have these people who are kind of redeeming, Germany through their art, and they grew up with the collective guilt of all this stuff, and it's interesting. I personally, uh, you know, detest Nazis and the German government of the 40s, 30s, 40s, whatever, and that whole era. You know, um, I don't know as much about the German government after America just pummeled the fuck out of them. Actually, Russia defeated them, actually, but America takes credit for them for that. Um, but I'm mostly German myself. I've never really thought about it one way or another. I mean, I never felt like if somebody makes a German accent or a joke that's German oriented, I'm not politically correct. I don't, get offended. Um, I just, and if anybody says, a lot of those people were racist and Nazis, it's like, yeah. I mean, not my ancestors. They came from Germany like 200 some years ago. Um, but yes, the previous generations in this century were, yes, they were Nazis. So I'm going to try to talk about two great World War II movies that are on Criterion. They're both very intense, one especially more than the other. Um, and I'm not sure when I'm going to talk about them. I don't know if I should let the cat out of the bag, but you can probably guess. But anyway, The Tin Drum by the aforementioned Volker Schlondorf is one. And then Come and See, which is, incredibly, I guess, infamous film because it's so intense and traumatic. Um, wow. Yeah, it blew my mind. Tin Drum is like, Hogan's Heroes compared to Come and See. And Tin Drum is pretty wrenching too at times, though it has a lot of absurdism in it to kind of weigh, so things aren't quite as weighty. But I'm not going to get into them today. I'll just wrap up talking about Ali. So Ali and Emmy, their relationship they go on a vacation together after all this bigotry is thrown at them, and they seem to enjoy themselves. But when they come back, things are starting to shift a little, and for some reason, Emmy's neighbors aren't. They're pretending like they're not racist against Ali any longer, and they're suddenly befriending her again. And then her family starts coming around, and everyone seems suspicious. The guy who kicked the television set, he does apologize, but then it turns out he really just wanted money. Um, he's really a detestable slime ball. I don't know that actor, but he's pretty funny. So that seemed odd to me. Uh, I guess it seemed odd to Emmy, but she kind of was happy about it. And unfortunately, then she started to try to draw Ali into this, like, it's okay. They're my friends, the family, that they don't hate you. And he's like, no, German's bad. All German's bad. Don't like your friends, and because he had kind of speaks in this broken, German, which is translated as broken English. And yeah, they are bad actually. And Ali is right, but she's older, she's lonely. That's the kind of people she, came up with. And I think she herself even makes some comments that are very stereotypical, and it's kind of heartbreaking, about Ali's race. And so he kind of like just goes off and starts drinking, and he starts having a lot of physical pain and discomfort, which they never quite completely diagnose. And he begins sleeping with the bartender at the bar where Ali and Emmy met, and she's played by Barbara Valentin, who is called the German Jane Mansfield. And she's very, kind of voluptuous and Jane Mansfield like, glamorous. She was in a few movies, a lot of German movies, maybe some Krimis, I think. But she's also known as being one of Freddie Mercury's, one of his small handful, maybe two, of his female lovers. And I mean, I don't know the extent of their loving, but they were like considered a couple, and that was kind of hidden, really. I mean, I don't know if it at the time people were like, Freddie's dating this blonde bombshell from Germany, probably so, but that was before my time. But I was into Queen in the early '80s, but I wasn't following like tabloids and Freddie's personal life. Um, Queen were a very successful band, and everybody knew a lot of their songs, but not much was known about Queen themselves. They're not like nowadays where Freddie Mercury's kind of idolized, which culminated in the Bohemian Rhapsody film, which I personally don't have any interest in seeing, to be honest. Um, but Barbara was his companion, and some of the press clippings from the period were really cruel. Like one I read, the headline mischaracterized her as a porn actress, and then I did some research. I couldn't find any porn she'd done. I mean, I was a little disappointed, but yeah. So Lee starts sleeping with her character, the bartender, and the bartender is sympathetic a little towards Emmy, but she's also kind of jealous and kind of likes Ali, and she likes him more for his physicality. He's tall and muscular, and he's exotic to her, I guess. She's like the Aryan, princess or whatever. But she is a genuine friend, to Ali. But I don't like that home wrecking she's doing. So they try to reconcile, and they start to. He comes over to see her again at the bar, kind of like he did in the beginning, and then he collapses, and it's just bad. I'm not going to give away the ending, but it's pretty tragic. So I can't really put on my finger, other than what I've already mentioned, what I think is incredible about this movie. I've talked about it so much, maybe I should just make this an official review. I don't know. Um, but I feel like it has a really austere kind of framing. Like a lot of his stuff, just very almost theatrically, like stage bound, but nice lighting and not overpowering melodramatic lighting like in Carell. And when I say overpowering, I don't mean that in a bad way. Carell has more of these extreme color filters, which Cirque used, and of course, popularly used by Italian directors like Bava and Argento. Um, but Carell has had that style. That's his most like refined film, um, artistically. Its craftsmanship is just amazing. This is more of his earlier raw stuff, kind of venturing toward the middle period, and he's really at his peak here. This movie was well acclaimed. I can't remember if it won any awards or not. I should know that. I wonder if I have a cheat sheet I can give you some info on. Maybe. Aha! Here we go. Ali Ferry Sassoon is considered a masterpiece of contemporary cinema. Considered to be one of Fassbinder's most powerful works, and hailed by many as a masterpiece. It won International Federation of Film Critics for Best in Competition Movie, and it won the prize of the Ecumenical Jury at the 1974 Cannes Film Festival. And yeah, I mean, it's just so real and powerful. And Bridget Mira is the actress who plays Emmy, and it's so I don't know. There's something about it that it's just so touching. It's just like love is love, and it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. Fuck your family and your friends and your hangers on at the bar. If they're not going to support you, they can go to hell. That's just my opinion. I've always seen it that way anyway, because I've had pushback from people about some of my selections for companionship, and I get very belligerent about it. I'll be honest, I get very belligerent about it and protective of my relationships, and when that happens, and so I was disappointed that Ali and Emmy didn't like fight more for their relationship, but in their own way, they did kind of make their way back to each other tentatively. And then she said, "Could we try again?" And he was like, "Yes, I love you." But then he gets sick, and um, I don't know. It's just really powerful. I think I cried the first time I saw it. I might start crying in a minute. Let me tell you about the extras on this Blu-ray. I'm just going to make this a review. Fuck it. So it's a 4K digital transfer. Introduction by Todd Haynes. So Todd Haynes is basically, the guy who did, I don't know what his most famous movie is. He did Safe with Julianne Moore, which is out on the Criterion Edition. He did Far From Heaven with, I think it's called Far From Heaven with Julianne Moore also, which is a semi-riff, homage remake of this and All That Heaven Allows. And it's a fine movie, but it's not remotely in the league of either of them, especially Ali. And then earlier on, he did an anthology movie called Poison. He's done a number, but I've never really connected with his work, to be honest. I think he's talented, but he's a little too. His stuff is a little too cold for me. I'll admit I haven't seen Safe, and that's one I would like to see. I mean, it was very critically discussed when it came out in the late 90s. He was one of kind of the wave of indie directors that broke in the 90s. He'd done Poison, and Poison's got some really intense scenes, and it's got a lot of Jean Genet influence, a lot of homoeroticism, and then it also has like these kind of riffs on science fiction and horror genres. Like I said, it's different stories. I wouldn't mind seeing it again. It's one of those early ones I rented in the 90s that I thought, that I heard was really kind of out there. Another movie from that period that I rented right around the same time. They're totally unrelated, but it's a Baxter, the French film about, or is it Belgian? French film, I'm going to say for now, about the pit bull or whatever kind of dog who, he doesn't talk, but he thinks, he narrates the movie, and he's really evil, and he hates humanity, and you hear his thoughts. That movie needs to be on Blu-ray. Baxter. I recommend that one. So while we're in this whole imaginary film class, we can go ahead and throw these out to you guys. I can go ahead and throw them out. I don't have any assistance in this. So All That Heaven Allows is one of Douglas Sirk's major works. I would recommend you get that. You see that. Ali Fairies the Soul is one of Fassbinder's major works. I'm not saying start with them, but it wouldn't hurt. I mean, you could start with worse movies, even though, Fassbinder really didn't do a worse movie as far as I'm concerned. Lesser movies, maybe. And then you can check out Todd Haynes. Maybe you could find Safe and give me an opinion about what you think about it. And then I don't remember the other. Oh, Baxter. Yes, I would recommend that one too. So get on it. Baxter, just for being a unique movie, not a filmmaker. Not the beginning of kind of the journey through the oeuvre of a filmmaker. So anyway, there's a few more extras. One on here, there's Signs of Vigorous Life, New German Cinema, 1975 BBC program about the film movement. It's really excellent and a lot of nice interviews and clips. Insight into like the big three, Fassbinder, Wanders, and Herzog. Then there's a short film this guy made in 2002 called Angst ist zu oft, which basically is like supposedly the correct grammatical form of the title, Fairies the Soul. Supposedly, Fassbinder, even though it's officially called Ali Fairies the Soul internationally, Fassbinder's title was roughly translated as Fear Eat Soul. I don't know if he's like, kind of, not making fun of, but pointing out Ali's kind of broken, the way he talks, his broken English. Fear Eat Soul, like man bites dog. Anyway, this is kind of a sad movie. It's short, and it's all shot from a POV shot of an actor. And he's apparently a black immigrant. He's living in Germany, and he's an actor, and he's on his way to play in a play, and the play is Ali Fairies the Soul. And Bridget Mira is in the play playing herself and playing Emmy toward the end. But this guy on his way to try to do this, he gets assaulted and harassed by these Nazi skinheads, and they beat the hell out of him, and he goes on, even though he's very angry and with good reason. And the police at first seem like they're trying to help him, and then they don't like his attitude. Luckily, they didn't have like, military grade weaponry like if they were in America. But no, I'm just kidding. But they would have guns that they would probably, just blow this guy away. and the Nazis. Nazism was not exactly. It was pretty frowned on in Germany at that time, um, and with good reason. So it was interesting to see Nazi skinheads. Usually, I see skinheads as like in Britain or America, um, but they were horrible. And Ali really kind of got the shaft. I mean, he insisted on leaving rather than pressing charges, and so you're still seeing him staggering around. He's wounded or whatever, and then he finally makes his way to the play, and it's evident from the angles and the reaction of Bridget Mir that he's collapsing, and so you kind of have the no, he does the. I think he does the performance. He does do the performance. He doesn't collapse. In character, he collapses, but uh, in real life, he makes it through it, I believe, and then he dies. I think he dies. I could be wrong. Maybe he just like zonks out. But basically, what I'm saying is he spent the day getting to this job playing in this play where he's playing a character who's discriminated against, kind of like he is, and he went through hell literally to get there, and he pulled it off despite that, even if it endangered his life because he didn't go to the hospital. So if any of that makes sense, it's on this Blu-ray. So I don't know if you can see it any other way. It might be on YouTube since it's like a short movie. Maybe somebody uploaded it. Maybe somebody uploaded Ali on YouTube. So that's the excitement. So this is basically an Ali Fears the Soul review. Let's just face it. It's not an arbitrary interlude, but I do want to throw a bunch of stuff in here that I would have done had it been an interlude. First of all, I wanted to say hello and to Bree. I've mentioned her on these videos before. She's been a wonderful aspect of my life lately, and I'd also like to thank the usual. Oh, I could say Bree, ladies and gentlemen, Bree. But I don't have permission yet to use her full name. I mean, and I understand why, but the internet being what it is. So, but Sean Lee Levin, I'm gonna, I usually mention him, and Tim Tolbert and Tim McLean. Those are some of my, buddies. I have a bunch of other ones who I, probably should mention from time to time. That are in my groups and that text with me and share music and film stuff. So I'll give those guys a shout out next time. I mean, there's a few, like Ken Story is one, Stephen Coe is one, Pam Reeve is one. Yeah, they're just some cool people, and my film group has a lot of people like that, and also some people who really have some major things going in cult film, like Heather Drain, who writes for Diabolic magazine. I've mentioned her before. I've known her for years and never met her in person though. And she's just a great writer about film. And like Susie Ayala or Creepy Susie, she's the right hand man of Stephen Biro, who runs and owns Unearthed Films, which is kind of known for like really extreme films. And she's like super friendly and knowledgeable. Um, I'll think of some more. Robert Munell, he's been a long time published critic and film authority, and I looked up to him a lot for his knowledge. And my good friend Bill White, who I've known personally for many years, he lived in Charlotte for a little while in the late 90s. He also has been a film writer most of his life. He's a musician. He's like managed a jazz club. He's like jammed with some, notable people, musicians. Like he was James Bullitt Ulmer's manager for a short time. He and I met through iMagazine. We met Jama Fanaka and stayed in touch with Jama. Bill got a little closer to Jama than I did, and rest in peace. Jama left us a few years ago, and he was such a sweet guy. Maybe one day I'll talk about his movies. Or maybe I did a review one. I may have reviewed Welcome Home, Brother Charles already for Halloween. I'm starting to think I did. I should have if I didn't. But you can check and see. But those are just a few people I really like. I mean, I'm leaving a lot of people out. I don't have like a list in front of me. But basically, they're all kind of enriching my knowledge and experience, and we're kind of like sharing things together. And kind of introducing each other different things. I will say I've got two friends here in Charlotte that I've known a long time. I don't really get to see in person much at all, but Reggie Dennis, and I've known him since 1989. He's a bassist primarily. He's a great musician, and he's just a cool guy. He's a kind of a really keen astrologer. Um, and then there'd be Andrew Nesbitt. He may not want to reveal his real name. Andrew Nesbitt. He goes by all kinds of different names on Facebook. I think he changes it every month. But he's like a guy I met at Borders. He was one of our customers. And he and I bonded over music and movies. And his taste goes to some really wild stuff. And right now, he, like me, is on like an extended kind of progressive music kind of quest. And, we're getting recommended all these incredible things on the little sidebar on YouTube. And like, it's psychic. Like, he'll share me one, and it's one I've just looked at, and vice versa. Um, so it's like the great minds. And then, we get each other into jazz and different things, really all kinds of music. And he's a good guy. So he needs to hang out with me, but he won't. He never gets over to my place. But now with COVID, everybody has kind of an excuse, and I get that. So anyway, there's a few people I wanted to say hi to and call out to. I'm gonna do some more TV stuff. It's probably gonna be March before I do Star Trek parts 3 and 4. It's gonna be pretty soon that I'm gonna do WandaVision episodes 5 and 6, because 5 has already been on, and 6 is coming out in 2 days. I'm so excited. So I'll probably stay up late tomorrow night and wait till it comes on. It usually drops around 3 a.m. Eastern Standard Time or 3:30. Sometimes they get slack, and they try to do it at midnight Pacific time. But sometimes they get slack, and you know how Disney is. I'm just kidding. But I rewatched Age of Ultron. I also rewatched Endgame. And those are two Avengers movies if you haven't heard of them. Avengers Endgame, never heard of it. And then, I was trying to kind of do that just for some refresher on WandaVision. I must say my opinion of Age of Ultron has increased and improved greatly. I'm going to go ahead and commit heresy and admit I'm not a fan of the first Avengers movie. I was a fan when it came out, and it was one of those things that I got swept along with. And I didn't think at that age I would be like that, because I was like that with Star Wars, but I was really, really little. But Avengers was like that too. It kind of became so ubiquitous and commercial. It left a funny taste in my mouth. I didn't feel that essence of those characters in a resonant way, the way I did some of the Solo movies and the X-Men movies, or the Daredevil TV show. I'm not really a big fan of Joss Whedon. He's someone else I kind of got swept into following for a couple of reasons. He took over X-Men from Grant Morrison when Grant Morrison left Marvel, and I didn't like Whedon's stuff. Some of it was used in The Last Stand and didn't need to be in there. They should have stuck with Phoenix and fleshed that out. But he's known, of course, for Buffy and Angel and all kinds of stuff. I tend to like his lesser known shows, like Dollhouse was pretty good, very short lived, and I did like Firefly. Firefly is the only popular show of his that I really like a lot. I'm not like a fanatic, but I really enjoy it. I think it's good. I used to have the whole series on DVD, and I sold it because I'm just selling most of my DVDs. But his style is he's creative, but he's a little too glib and hipster for me. And his work on the Justice League movie was terrible. It was as terrible as Zack Snyder's, but for totally different reasons. Zack Snyder was too dour and took himself too seriously, and Whedon acted like the whole enterprise was just a fucking joke. And I'm Batman. What's your superpower? I'm rich. I don't know if he wrote that line or Snyder did, but I bet you anything Whedon did. So we won't even get into this re-release Zack Snyder Ultimate Director's Cut that they're going to broadcast to kind of placate him and shut him up. And he's not going to be working on DC movies anymore. Not a fan of him either. I'm kind of hard on a lot of sacred cows. But as you know, I'm passionate about millions of other things that I'd rather bring to people's attention than just spending time knocking these guys. But I was going to say, before I wrap this up, to finish that train of thought before it crashes, is Age of Ultron is really good, and Whedon improved 100% in his direction, both cinematically, visually, and with the script. He wrote it all by himself, and it wasn't nearly as it didn't have nearly as much goofy humor, and it just didn't. It had more to it. The Avengers is one of those movies that it had to happen. There wouldn't be a lot of the shit that came afterwards that was way better than it. But there had to be an Avengers 1 where they all meet for the first time and get it out of the way. And there was no guarantee it was going to be a good movie. And I don't think it, I guess for what it is, it's a good movie. But I mean, it's someone who loves movies and loves superheroes, more or less, and loves a lot of superhero movies for different reasons. I think it's just okay. Again, people are probably going to be hurling nasty comments at me because it's more fashionable to say Age of Ultron sucked and the Avengers was like the Avengers, man. But Age of Ultron taps more into the comics that I grew up with. I mean, the plot of Avengers is very, very loosely based on the skeletal idea of the Avengers, that Loki goes amok and these guys band together. Other than that, has really no material directly from the comic books. It's just all his extrapolation on all that. Age of Ultron actually takes some story arcs and tosses them around and compresses them and puts a lot of his own stuff in there. And but he throws in Ultron and the Vision and the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. He introduces all these characters, and Baron Strucker, though he's kind of a minor character. But they're all longtime Marvel characters I was familiar with. I like the way they were done. Visually and character-wise. They fleshed out Hawkeye a bit, but the thing about Hawkeye is Hawkeye in the movies really is not Hawkeye in the comics. I'm sure Marvel's kind of retroactively changed the comic Hawkeye to be more like the movie, but I like Jeremy Renner, and I think he's great as Hawkeye. He doesn't act like Hawkeye a little bit in Civil War, and a little bit in Age of Ultron, but now when he goes into the Ronin mode, yeah, he pretty much acts like Ronin. I mean, that's the whole point. Though in the comics, Ronin was motivated by the death of his family, and that's the thing. In the comics, Clint and Natasha weren't best friends; they were lovers, and they had a pretty stormy relationship. And it ended pretty early in the comics history, but they were indelibly linked because they were both introduced as villains of Iron Man individually, and then kind of came together and became villains together, and they started messing around, and she was a Russian spy, and then they made Hawkeye an Avenger, and Hawkeye became really cool. He's one of my favorites, but he's very sarcastic and bullheaded and anti-authority, very rebellious, always got a kind of a flip, irreverent thing to say. He had a real problem with Captain America's leadership. And he just kind of was one of those guys. He just said whatever was on his mind. Usually in slang. And I loved Hawkeye growing up. I thought he was great. And then later they made his character more serious, or he acted more serious, and he became the leader of the West Coast Avengers. And that's fine. I got what they were trying to do, and they married him off to Mockingbird. But I always liked the irreverent Hawkeye that didn't fit in anywhere, who was constantly making new identities and joining different teams, Avengers, Defenders, and of course, much later, the newer Hawkeye was in the Thunderbolts. But Hawkeye's leader doesn't make sense to me. But I get what Steve Englehart was trying to do. And there's a lot of Steve Englehart in Age of Ultron. He had a long run on Avengers after Roy Thomas. So Age of Ultron, I give a thumbs up. We won't get into what I thought of Endgame again. Talk about that some other time. Everyone's talked about Endgame, endlessly. I like it better than I used to. When I first saw it, I was disappointed. Well, loved the first hour, and I still think the second hour, the actual heist thing, there's some portions of some of the scenarios that kind of drag, under the weight of their own melodrama, a little bit much for me personally. Whereas I like the grim tone in the first like half hour, 45 minutes, which follows on from the grim tone in Infinity War. So anyway, I guess I'm going to wrap this up. So I hope you see Ali as soon as humanly possible. And I will be doing more videos. I'll be doing another film class video probably in a few weeks. WandaVision video next week, and Star Trek ones in March. And I've got a slate of Criterion and non-Criterion Blu-rays that I'm going to review on Blu Review. I don't know what I'm going to do with the music column or whatever. And as far as the soul bearing goes, those are popular people too. Who knows when one of those could strike me. Same with the interludes. I just do those off the cuff. I just was afraid I didn't have my thoughts focused enough to seriously review Ali. I was just going to mention it, a few things. I got kind of wrapped up in it, and I figured while my memory was fresh about all this stuff, I'd throw it out there. So thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Subscribe. I've been slack the last few times about putting the little symbols here to click on too, so I'm going to try to amend that. But subscribe, and please give me a thumbs up if you like this video. I'm really I have a thumb deficit on my channel, because I know a lot of people, not a lot of people. I know many more people are watching my thing than actually give me a thumbs up. So I don't know if they just forget about it, or they don't like it, the video. I don't know. I've talked about this before. It really doesn't matter, but I'd appreciate it. It really helped me out. So take care.